Hello, team. Thanks for tuning in to the Clemson Drone Podcast. Before we start the pod, I just want to take a quick minute to let you know about our brand new comprehensive 2-course online program. This is something we just launched in February and are super pumped about. It starts off with our 8-week UAS vocation course. In this class, you'll earn your Part 107 license, learn to fly with our simulator, create maps and models using Drone Deploy, and become a Level 1 thermographer. After that, we're excited to announce our brand new course called UAS Mission Administration. This class is designed for current pilots and UAS program leaders. Over 8 weeks, we'll cover enhanced general knowledge, advanced mission planning, and you'll create your organization's custom standard operating procedure manual using our cutting-edge AI tools. At the end of the course, you'll earn AUVSI's Level 1, 2, and 3 Trusted Operator certifications. Check it all out at clemsondrone.com. Now, back to the pod. Welcome to the Clemson Drone Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Burgett from Clemson University. Join me as I dive into the world of drone technology and explore its impact through the eyes of industry leaders. Hear how drone technology directly supports public agencies, private companies, and entrepreneurs from those leading the innovation. If you're a seasoned UAS program manager or just getting into the game, this is a place to learn from the best to help your program soar to new heights. Make sure you subscribe now on your favorite podcast platform so you don't miss a single episode of the Clemson Drone Podcast. At Clemson Drone, the sky is not the limit, it's just the beginning. All right, everybody. Great to have you back for another episode of the Clemson Drone Podcast. My name is Joe Burgett with Clemson University. I am super excited to have our next guest on. Obviously, I am a drone ambassador, and we'll talk your ear off about drones and how they are used. There certainly is no shortage of use cases out there. However, there's an emerging business where entrepreneurs are using drones to help people find their lost pets. I love this on several fronts. First, I'm a dog lover. I think it's absolutely fantastic that there are a better tool out there than just stapling lost dog flyers on light poles. Second, this is a great market. This is a service that people will buy. If you've ever lost a pet, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But third, man, what a great service to provide. I mean, making people happy, that's just the best. So with that, it's my pleasure to have Chad Tavernia as our next guest. Chad is a retired New York State police investigator turned high-tech pet finder. He's been in law enforcement for 20 years, and he retired in 2022. He's the founder of North Country Drone Search and Recovery in upstate New York. Chad leverages his public safety background and his love for outdoors to reunite missing pets with their owners from a bird's eye view. I absolutely love that. Matt, it is great to have you on the show. Welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on.
All right, good deal. So, Chad, we're going to talk about your business, and we're going to kind of go through some of the specifics there. But why don't you start off by just kind of giving us your background? Where did you grow up? I know you were in law enforcement, so what did you do there? Tell us a little bit about how you got into the drone space.
Yeah, like you had mentioned, I grew up here in upstate New York in a little town called Malone. I'm born and raised here, and worked here locally as a 20-year member of the New York State Police. I started out as a road trooper, did 6 years on the road, and then I did get promoted in 2008 to the position of investigator, where I did 14 years. And like you had mentioned, I retired in January of 2022 as an investigator. As far as how I got into, flying drones, I actually started flying drones back in around 2015. Started out with a Phantom 4 Pro, just kind of doing basic, aerial photography and, just kind of as a hobbyist. And it really wasn't until like mid 2023 when I started to, learn about the infrared technology coming down into the drone space at a more economical level, where an average person could get their hands on it. So I did make the investment in the thermal imaging drone in late October of 2023 and started finding animals with it very soon after.
Okay. Well, so with that, when you say you started finding animals, was this a business that you had started intentionally and, I'm going to buy this drone with a sensor and start this business? Or was it kind of by accident where you might have maybe help somebody, a buddy or whatever, and it just kind of grew into something? So how did the actual business part start?
Yeah, I did purchase the drone with the intention to initially help deer hunters in the area. Like, after they shoot a deer, they can't find it for whatever reason. there is a market there also for for people using thermal imaging drones to find recently deceased deer carcasses for deer
Right.
hunters. And that activity is actually right now illegal to participate in New York. So
Hmm.
although there are some pending legislations possibly going to be in place, technically as of right now you cannot do that. So I did get into the pet recovery not really by accident, but just it kind of just started out with a random request that I had gotten from a woman in Berkshire, Vermont, in January of 2024. And she basically just reached out to me one Saturday morning and said, "Hey, I follow your page. I think it's cool how you find animals like that. Do you think you could find my dog that's been missing for 6 days?"
Oh,
And I pretty much told her, I was like, I really think if we could, put our heads together and kind of figure out where you think your dog might be after 6 days, I'm confident that the drone can find him.
nice.
And so I made the 2 hour drive out there and had the dog found and back home in about 90 minutes.
Oh man, that's such a great story. So that was your initial client, I guess. You want to call that person a client, I guess so. But what about people now? Like now that you're a little more developed, how do people find you? How do they learn about your service and that sort of thing?
Yes, social media really is my only place that I market, my services. I mean, I like my Facebook page specifically has really surprisingly grown in popularity, kind of from those initial successes. Like I had mentioned just a moment ago, I found that first dog out in Berkshire, Vermont, and then when I made a post about that on Facebook, I had another request come in, relatively local to me, just about 45 minutes away, from a guy who had seen that post, and he had a little 4-month-old
Hmm.
German Shepherd that had been
Hmm.
missing 4 days. So he wanted to have me out. So I mean, I went out there, and again, like within a couple of hours, I had that dog found and returned back home to him. So like after those first two like initial successes, like my Facebook page like really kind of like
Right.
honestly exploded with like really like tens of thousands of followers. And
Oh my goodness.
that's really kind of been the driving force behind literally every call I've ever gotten.
Oh man, that is so cool. And we'll definitely put your Facebook post or link down in the show notes so people can take a look at that. So I know that this is kind of a retirement gig, I guess, from what you have said. But do you have plans to like grow your business and expand to maybe in different territories, different states, that sort of thing?
I've actually gotten that question quite a bit lately. I mean, I really honestly at the moment don't have any like major plans to expand in any significant way. I mean, I just because I'll be honest with you, like my really only interest when it comes to like commercial use of the drone is the search and
Right.
rescue aspect. Like I really do like just thoroughly enjoy taking my drone out there and seeing if I can, find this little missing animal I'm looking for. It's just a process that I enjoy doing and seem to be, at least, pretty decent at
Yeah.
doing. So at the moment, I really just want to continue with the search and rescue of the pets. It's something I enjoy doing, and yeah, I mean, at the moment, I would have to say that I don't have any plans to like majorly shift the course of the business.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's totally, I mean, that's totally legit. And you enjoy it and you're good at it. And that's a valuable, just from like a public service thing. Like that's so cool. So, but let's talk, you mentioned processes. So let's just kind of talk about that. Let's talk about the logistics of a typical mission. Let's just say you get a call and someone has lost their dog and needs help. What do you do? What is your process?
Yeah, the first thing I always do, obviously, is I always get the address of where is this animal missing from. And the first thing I do from there is I go onto Google Maps and I just basically, look at the satellite imaging of the area. What is the general makeup of this terrain? Is it mostly heavy woods, which we have a lot of here in upstate New York? Is there a lot of field country involved? So I'm initially looking at, what is the makeup of the land to try to, figure out how I think that it needs to be tackled, from a search standpoint. From there, I'm obviously going to look at at the upcoming weather,
Hmm.
forecast for the area. If we can, hopefully, we're going to obviously, avoid any kind of major storms or significant precipitation coming through. Obviously, I always have to confirm, the
Sure.
airspace, which is one of the first things I always do. And I've actually done this enough now that I'm just so familiar now with the controlled airspace makeup of New York State that I pretty much know basically just off the initial request if it's an area that's going to be open or not.
Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense. So with your process, I mean, I guess I'll ask you just the hardware. Like, what hardware are you using to find the pets? And is there any kind of specific software that you're using to maybe do a grid pattern or search pattern? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, currently I'm using the DJI
Hmm.
Matrice 30T, and I also have the DJI Mavic 3T. They're both very similar, DJI drones, but the one major difference that they have is that the Matrice is a all-weather capable drone. So, and living here in upstate New York where I do, we get a
Hmm.
lot of precipitation and a lot of, snow precipitation, at times. So I do find the Matrice for me and just the area where I live to be a very crucial drone to have. And I would argue that honestly, probably 7 out of 10 searches, I'm forced into using the Matrice just because at some point in the operation, I'm probably going to be dealing with some precipitation.
And I would think the zoom camera on it too is a big factor.
Yeah, the zoom camera is certainly a significant upgrade on the Matrice 30T, but I'll be honest with you, the Mavic 3T, although the image quality isn't as good as the Matrice, I mean, it certainly is more than good enough to just simply identify the pet that I'm looking for.
Okay.
So, oh yeah, I mean, you are losing image quality, but as far as just getting the mission done, there are a lot of instances where I will specifically choose the Mavic over the Matrice, especially if I'm in areas, up here where I live. We have a lot of areas where it'll just be miles and miles of very heavy forest,
Hmm.
and I have to be very portable and like move around with my drone on the nearby road network in order to ensure that I can maintain visual line of sight with the drone and just be within good range of the drone. So there are instances where I will specifically use the Mavic over the Matrice because the portability,
Yeah,
the
sure.
ease of hand launching, like I hand launch and hand land the Mavic all the time. So
Yeah.
there are some major positives about the Mavic.
How high do you fly?
It really does depend on the terrain. If I'm in more open country where there are some fields and I've got like a more expansive field of view, I
Hmm.
will search up closer to that 370 to 390 range. But if I am in very heavy wooded area, I actually probably search around 250, 250 to
Wow.
270 because I just find that being at that altitude, it just gives the thermal camera a little bit more ability to penetrate through the foliage and
Yeah.
potentially see the pet underneath it. Whereas if you're up closer to that 390 range, although you can still see a lot of times, I have had instances where I just don't feel like the thermal camera is penetrating down to the ground level as well as it
Mhm.
could if I was a little bit lower in altitude.
Wow. I would have actually guessed that you were flying lower. That's amazing that you're able to fly that high and be able to see pets at that altitude. What about software? Are you manually flying it or do you have like a grid pattern that you use?
I do always manually fly. As far as software, I'm just using the DJI Pilot 2 app that comes stock on the drone.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't use any third party software or anything. I do always fly manual. I'm always manually controlling the drone and the flight of it. Yeah, I don't do any automated flights for the pets.
Okay. Well, so on a just kind of getting a feel for like how often you're called, like what is the frequency that people call you, and is there like are there other factors that influence how busy you get, like time of year, is like a certain season busier than others, or are there other factors that might play into how many times you get called a week or a month or whatever?
Yeah, as far as the frequency, I mean, it is hit and miss. I mean, I've had periods of time where I've gotten literally 10 calls in 4 days. And I've had periods where I've gone, 8, 9 days and not get a single call. So it is a
Mm,
sporadic, type business because I mean, honestly, pets do kind of just randomly go missing,
right.
It's, and as far as like a busier time of year than others, yeah, there's no question that, the winter time for me is certainly the busiest. And I think it just makes good sense because, like I said, up here where I live in the very northern tip of New York State, we get very long winters. I mean, we typically have snow on the ground for about 5 months out of the year, at a minimum, honestly.
Hmm.
So, and I do find that the pet owners just kind of seem to be maybe a little bit more. I don't know if desperate is the right word, but they're just like a little bit more urgency to find their
Yeah.
pet when there's 2 feet of snow on the ground and the nighttime temperatures are dipping down to that 0 degree mark.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And that honestly, that is a lot of volume because your primary way of getting the word out is just your Facebook page, right? You're not doing Google advertising or Facebook advertising or anything like that. It's just kind of organic digital word of mouth, right?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I really don't have. I mean, I don't even have a website for the business yet. I don't. Yeah, I don't do any other type of marketing or than just honestly mostly my Facebook page.
Yeah, that is so amazing. That I mean that is just wild that you're getting that many calls and it's just all organic. That is super cool. So what is your success rate? And I would imagine there's a window there. Someone calls you 2 months down the line, that's not so good. But what's your success rate? And is there like a particular window that that people need to call you within to really increase your chances of finding their pet?
Yeah, I mean, as far as success rate, I would estimate picking every case in. I would say the average success rate is somewhere in that 40% range.
Okay.
But I will just maybe the one thing I will add on that is like I will tell all of the pet owners if we can put our heads together because the biggest and I always call it the $1 million question. I always tell this to the owners. The $1 million question in this is can I get my drone over the course of this 4, 5, 6 hour search, however long it's going to be over the course of this search, if I can get my drone within, I would argue, a couple 100 yards of your dog, I really think the chances I'm going to see it are over 85%.
Oh wow.
I
Okay.
really, I really am that confident in the drone's ability to see the pet that if we can get the drone that close to the animal, I really like my chances of finding it. I would argue that certainly in the vast majority of the cases where I haven't found the dog was, or
Hmm.
whatever pet I'm looking for, the pet was never even close to the drone.
Right.
We were
Right.
we
That
were
makes sense.
we were either miles away, or the only other exception would be this dog was inside of a barn or in somebody's house or laying on their back
Right.
porch, something along those lines.
Yeah, no, I get that. So, again, I know this is kind of a retirement gig, and you're doing this as much of as a service to the community as it is kind of as a business for yourself. But how does your fee structure work? I mean, is it like they call you and you say this is a lump sum, is an hourly rate? Just kind of talk us through like how does that work?
Yeah, as far as how I handle the pricing of the service, just through trial and error, what I've kind of learned is I always go into every search with at least a 5 hour window of time that I'm committed to being on the search because it's just in the overwhelming majority of the cases, it takes 3, 4, 5 hours to find the pet and then to get the owner
Hmm.
out to the pet and get the pet to come to the owner. Like that is all a process that just unfortunately very rarely comes together in a rapid amount of time. So I always go into every search looking at it that I'm going to be there for 5 hours looking for this dog or a combination of looking for him and then getting the owner to him or her.
Okay.
So I price it out as just you're getting 5 hours of my time. And how I do that is if it's a local search, which I consider a local search, anything under an hour drive. So if I'm driving less than an hour to you, I will come out there and do that for $300. I will
Okay.
give you 5 hours of my time and drive 2 hours on top of it for $300 and hopefully get your pet back to you. And what I do from there is, if I'm driving further than that, because I have driven as far as 4 hours one way.
Wow.
So
Okay.
I've literally had, a lot of cases where I'm adding literally 8 hours of travel on top of a 5 hour search.
Sure.
And for those instances, I will do that for $600.
Yeah. Wow. You are very reasonable. I mean, I think that there could be some pet owners, especially if they love their pet as much as, I love my pet. There might be a premium that you could charge on that.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly try to keep because I mean I understand that when a person loses a pet, they really do genuinely look at it as a member of the family,
Yeah.
I certainly do my best to keep my prices as reasonable as I
Yeah.
can with the realization that at times I'm literally investing 13, 14 hours of my time at this.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, yeah. You got to be compensated for that. But no, I totally understand that This is, I mean, it's one of those things. It's like the medical profession that this is not just a business. This is someone's member of the family, and
Oh,
it's their dog.
yeah, and
You
absolutely.
know?
And in fact, I could tell you a very brief thing. I mean, actually, yesterday morning, I was able to find a dog. It
Huh.
was like a little small 10-pound little pug mix. And like I said, we're still getting very cold temperatures here in upstate New York. In fact, yesterday morning it was like 27 degrees with a wet snow. And this
Oh my
little dog
goodness.
had been out all night long in that weather, and when I found him at about 8:30 in the morning, he was, like, freezing. I mean, you could just tell he was super cold.
Yeah.
He was, like, rotating which paw was off the ground,
Oh,
and so, like, to see the owner to find him and then coordinate getting the owner into the dog and then seeing, their reaction when they get to them, and then he brings them back out to his wife, and then they see like to see that is like that's like really like the ultimate prize, you
yeah.
know?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, no, I get it. I get it 100%. No, I totally understand that. Well, let me ask you kind of one kind of final question here. If and I'm kind of asking you as your as a surrogate for other entrepreneurs that might be out there that are looking to starting a similar service in their market. Maybe they're already doing drone work, and they want to add this as like another vertical, another service that they can offer. What are some of the advice that you might offer them? And maybe you can maybe set the stage or talk about the main challenges of the business you wish maybe it's someone had told you about, or what just general advice would you give someone who's looking to kind of replicate what you're doing and the success that you've had?
Yeah, the one piece of advice that I would offer, which I think can go into any industry, that one is involved in, is just, pursue something that you have a genuine passion for.
Yeah.
Like like I mentioned earlier, like I just genuinely enjoy the process of trying to find animals with my thermal imaging drone. That's why I initially bought the thing. And I
Right.
did kind of get, fortunate that this whole like pet recovery business kind of formulated for me, but like I didn't have like any grandiose plan for it. So like I just came into it with a passion to do the work, and like
Hmm.
the business part of it really kind of just like came to me almost. So I would just encourage anybody out there to ensure that it's something that you have just like a passion to do, because like I mentioned, when you're out there for 5, 6 hours, and I have actually had searches, I've been out there for literally 8 hours searching for a pet.
Yeah.
When you're looking at that, drone controller screen for that long, it does turn into a grind. Um,
Yeah.
so
Yes.
like it has to be something that you enjoy doing.
Yeah. Man, that's really good advice, and I appreciate you sharing that with us. Chad, I think we need to leave it there, but you have such a super cool business. I just absolutely love it from top to bottom. It is just it's one of those cool things where you can kind of turn your passion, your skills into something that's not only marketable, but just like a solid good thing for the universe, man. So I think it's great that you're doing. Thank you so much for coming on and talking with us about your business.
It was my pleasure, and like I mentioned earlier, I appreciate you having me on the show.
Yeah, awesome. Well, and we'll put your Facebook page down in the show notes. Thank you everyone for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. We've got more to come later on the season, so hang in there, and I look forward to doing the next one with you. Thanks everybody. Thanks for listening to the Clemson Drone Podcast. Don't forget to follow us on your favorite podcast platform. Learn more about our online training offerings by going to clemsondrone.com. Thanks again, and remember, at Clemson Drone, the sky is not the limit, it's just the beginning. Thank you for listening to the Clemson Drone Podcast. If you enjoyed what you heard, I'd appreciate it if you could leave a 5-star rating and write a review. I'm told this makes a big difference in the algorithms used to recommend the podcast to others. Thank you.